Yes, hello from Pietro, from the limited edition from the UK. Hope you're all well. It's great to see you again for another episode of our insightful, we hope, broadcasts where we bring the protagonists from the world of independent watchmaking. And, you know, quite rightly, the broadcast is called The Independents. Today, we have one of our very trusted partners, one of those very, very enticing and inspiring watch brands that we have seen blossoming over the last few years. And we're very happy to have the owner of Armin Strom today, and also the master watchmaker behind most of the complications produced by Armin Strom. And of course, I couldn't do this alone. I do this with our editor, Johnny McElleron from Ireland, who hopefully will also be live with me in a second. So I'd like to welcome both Johnny and Claude. Here we go. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Hey, Pietro. Hi, Claude.
Hey, how are you?
All good, all good.
All good, Claude. Johnny is really busy with the preparation of this big festival in Ireland, the Festival of Watchmaking called the Festival of Time. And it's getting close, Johnny. It's getting close, September.
We're now approximately 4 months away. And I was just thinking today that it's a year since our first edition, the inaugural edition, that was put together very hastily after the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns. And so this year, we're really looking forward to the end of September, 22nd to 24th of September for the 2023 Festival of Time. Are you coming, Claude?
I hope so. I hope so.
Hey!
And how are you, Claude? Is it?
Waterford won't be full until you're in it, and that's what that's an Irish expression. So we're very much hoping that the Armin Strom will be exhibiting among this amazing list of independent watchmakers.
Really looking forward. Really looking forward to that. And I find, Claude, the summer is a bit of a great time, you know, end of the spring, summer, after the exhibitions. I just wrote it on our latest newsletter as well. That is a great time to think, to plan, to strategize, to kind of explore ideas that have been put in the drawer maybe a few months back. Do you find the same? Which kind of moments are you living in Armin Strom now in this this moment in time?
We are living in very exciting moments. We just have a new CNC machine arriving in beginning of June. We are running out of space, so we found a new space to put our CNC machines. So the company is growing. We are 34. I just signed a new contract with an amazing watchmaker, which will join our decoration team in 2 weeks. We got very, very lucky. It was a watchmaker, a lady. She came for a test day today. She blew us away with the kind of finishing she's already able to do. So she's going to join our decoration team. So yeah, it's exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And in your I know that things are always moving. We have had a few of these broadcasts, and if you are watching this now, you can go back in time and catch up on the broadcasts that we did before the pandemic, during the pandemic, recently as well. And you can kind of follow the development of Armin Strom, you know, from an idea, really, Claude, at the beginning of kind of enhancing the legacy of a legend of the watchmaking panorama, Mr. Armin Strom, to a fully fledged in-house manufacturer. Today, you can say that you have achieved the initial goal, because I know that you set for yourself always new goals, but you have achieved the initial goal of putting Armin Strom really on the map of the names that are really respected in watchmaking, and you do everything in-house in an independent way. So how important are those two elements still to this day, independence and the fact that you do everything in-house?
I think both of them are very important for us as a brand. In Armin Strom, we always wanted, I mean, Armin Strom, he was very known for skeletonized watches. Back in those days, there were only master watchmakers were able to skeletonize watches. You know, to open work, to take a file, to take a saw, these were the first guys applying finishing hand decoration on a wristwatch in days where nobody was believing in mechanical watches anymore. And so that when we took it over from Armin Strom, of course, the goal was to have our own movements. We had access to CNC machines. There is 3D drawing. There is a lot of machines which made it more easy for us maybe than for Mr. Armin Strom to become a manufacturer, but we still had to build up from scratch a whole manufacturing. That means we had to start to develop our own movement. We had to start to mill out the parts, to do the turning parts, our own screws, our own wheels, our own pinions. And this was a process which took time, you know, to be where we are now, mastering resonance, having a gravity equal force, you know. If I see back, it's a short period of time, but if I see what we have achieved in the last few years, it's just amazing, I think.
Yeah, because it's like at the beginning, of course, Mr. Armin Strom was groundbreaking because he started to switch the focus on the finishing and on showing actually the mechanics of a watch, even giving a priority over a dial. So he basically invented skeletonization to some extent, or gave full visibility to skeletonization, which was not a thing back in the days. And now you are taking it to the extreme by actually applying the most curious and inventive complications to actually show where you can bring skeletonization to the extreme, no?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the movement is the most important part for Armin Strom. We definitely want that people can explore the beauty of the mechanic, not just open work, a movement which was supposed to be produced in mass. It's every design, every development we do is really, we already have the movement visible in mind. So that the watch itself is built. We also talk sometimes about movement architecture. You know, we really build layer by layer to make sure that all the elements at the end, they follow each other. So form follows function is a very important thing for us. It's not purely function, because most of the watch brands, what they do, they create a movement which gives hour, minute, second, and maybe an extra information like a date or a power reserve indication or a chronograph. And they build their design around the watch, around the movement. They create a dial, they create hands, so on. And in Armin Strom, no, it's from the very scratch, from the main plate, we start to think about the design, which how the watch will look like at the end. So it's a quite a parallel process in between developing, reinventing ideas, creating shapes of bridges, where to put the micro rotor, where to put the barrel, where to put the dial, where to indicate the time. And then this is a process which is it's an unusual way to develop movements in the watch industry, I would say.
So interesting. And we'll talk about the different complications and the executions that you have brought to the table. But Johnny, if I can linger a little bit to the historical significance of Mr. Armin Strom, really, you know, the legend goes to the point where, Armin Strom, basically because of Armin Strom, some classes of skeletonizations were introduced in the schools of watchmaking in Switzerland back in the days when Armin Strom actually put his focus on it.
Absolutely. His work was, he's one of the pioneers. Let's put it in perspective, that Armin Strom is one of the pioneers of what we would consider today to be independent, contemporary independent watchmaking. And from the 1970s, 1980s, through the 1990s and early 2000s, he had a very important, very significant career, although he was doing something, as Claude mentioned earlier, that people had lost faith in mechanical watchmaking. And he saw the beauty in the mechanism. And through his open work dials and the skeletonization of the bridges and wheels and the gear trains of the movements, he extracted that beauty and put it on display. And I guess, I wasn't around in those days, Pietro, but I guess that he was, there was a small clique of clients who very much appreciated what he was doing, and people who are traditionalists who were not prepared.
And they were into the bespoke side of watchmaking, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the brand goes back 40 years, Claude, perhaps.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
So, and Claude in the same village.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So Armin Strom started his career in Burgdorf. Burgdorf is a city which is close to the capital, close to Bern, and we call it in Switzerland. It's the door to the Emmental. The Emmental, which is very known for its famous cheese with the big holes. And so in this valley, I think well-educated products, well-fabricated products, if it comes to leather goods, if it comes to clothes, if it comes to whatever, furnitures, this valley is very known for high-end manufactured art. And so Mr. Armin Strom, as a watchmaker, was known first for watch restoration, for high-end pieces, and then he discovered the passion of doing or creating his own brand. But he was living in a city where, farmers, cows, mountains, and so Armin Strom did not get an education in English. So he was not English speaking, he was not French speaking, he was Italian and Swiss German speaking. So this is why a lot of collectors do ask me why we never heard about Mr. Armin Strom. It was most of his, first of all, it was very limited, his production. It was only 20, 25 pieces a year. And most of those pieces were sold either in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, or he was very successful in the northern part of Italy. And then he got a little bit discovered by Omega. Omega saw what Mr. Armin Strom is able to do.
As they do, thinking about George Daniels as well.
Exactly, yeah. And so they hired Mr. Armin Strom to do a few skeletonized editions for Omega. And this is how he got famous, thanks to Omega. Omega, they never told their client that they do it their own. They always mentioned that Mr. Armin Strom is the guy who did the skeleton work in the 80s and 90s. And this is how he became famous. This is also the reason why he moved to Bienne, which is second largest watch city in Switzerland, and established his workshop here in Bienne.
Very, very fascinating story. If you're watching this, we are exploring the history of the brand Armin Strom with the co-owner and master watchmaker Claude Griesler. Feel free to put your comments here underneath, and if you're watching this recorded, you can do anyway, because we're going to come back on those questions that you may have at any time, really. And we really appreciate when we get feedbacks from you guys. So Claude, the incredible story goes on, and simply you and your business partner, Serge, were living in the same village as Armin Strom. So you got exposed in a lateral way to Armin Strom's work, and you got hooked up. How did it go?
So Serge and myself, we are born 1978. We went to kindergarten together. We graduated together in school. My family background is a watchmaker background. So my grandparents already worked in the watch industry. So for me, it was very obvious when my grandmother taught us how to assemble and disassemble stopwatches, because during the Second World War, she had a small workshop with a few ladies assembling and disassembling stopwatch for several armies, Swiss Army, US Army, and things like this. And so she was very proud of the work they did. Later on, they had a huge company producing spare parts for the watch industry. So, and he always, I remember, I think we were like 7 or 8 years old, and my grandmother already taught us how to assemble and disassemble pocket watches. So for me, I'm purely born in this watch industry. Serge has graduated in marketing and sales, did his studies, but was always into watches. So he started collecting Swatch watches. The higher hit budget got, the more mechanical the watches became. But he's purely from the watch collector side. So that was a perfect match, and we knew each other, and we said, okay, why should we not take over our local heritage of watchmaking? I mean, the brand philosophy was, for me as a watchmaker, for Serge as a watch collector, it was very obvious that to take over a brand where the movement is the center was a perfect idea.
So how long have you and Serge been in control of the company now, and impressing your own identity on the brand?
So we took over from Armin Strom in 2009. This is the year where we became a manufacturer.
Yes.
And Mr. Armin Strom, he got retired in 2012. So he was during the first 3 years, he was still with us. He was doing his skeletonized work. He was very proud of what we have achieved in a very short time, put CNC machines, developing our own movements. He always said that it's like, this is what happens now. It's a dream for me to have manufactured movements which are supposed to be high end under the name of Armin Strom. And he was very proud. He was not into CNC machines and programming computers, and he was focusing on his skeleton work. But I think what we learned during the first few years was that quality is king. If it doesn't matter how precise the movement has to be, the movement has to be precise, reliable, and well made. And this is something, we were 29, 30 years old, motivated, creating our own factory. And sometimes, so Mr. Armin Strom was a teacher for us and told us always, quality.
That's very interesting because, yeah. Oh, sorry, Johnny.
No, I just think I can relate to that because, Mr. Armin Strom was making watches at a time that predated computers, and computers weren't being taught in schools or colleges or anything like that. And I know myself that I just caught on at a stage. Most people I know would not be as fluent with computers and IT as I have become over the years. And if you don't know it, it's like learning a new language, and you either understand it or you don't. And I think that's what you and Serge have brought into the brand. And but it's fantastic having a look back, Pietro, at the history of
absolutely
what has been going on since 2009 and in this time, because so much has changed. Whereas Armin Strom is still absolutely unmistakable. From 100 meters, you could recognize an Armin Strom watch. The identity of the brand has changed and evolved and become more, if you like, simpatico with contemporary tastes, and also with its extraordinary in-house movements, which you are responsible for, Claudia.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say what happened in the last few years is we started in 2009 producing more or less standard movements. So we started with a double barrel hand winding mechanism. We added a micro rotor. Later on, we added a tourbillon. We started to skeletonize our watches, but it was like everything which we did was already known, or you could find it somehow in a watch book. How to build a watch can be, of course, you can always improve, like doing the barrel a little bit better, doing gear train a little bit better, or escapements. But the biggest changes in the last few years was when we presented in 2016 Salon QB in London, our first resonance watch. That completely changed the way how we develop, the way how we set up the manufacturing today. Resonance is a complication which was known since Christian Huygens, who discovered the phenomenon of resonance, and Abraham Louis Breguet, François Paul Journe, so a lot of high-end watchmakers worked on resonance. But I think what we achieved in 2016 was a breakthrough in resonance. So we found a way to perfectly synchronize two movements in one watch. And this was, for us, was a game changer because, you know, this is a problem in watchmaking which was there since almost 400 years. And a lot of the biggest watchmakers worked on the topic of resonance. Resonance is, the idea is to make the watch more precise, similar to a tourbillon, or even better, I would say better than a tourbillon, to have the movement as consistent as possible. And thanks to the invention, thanks that we as a young team were able to reinvent a complication, to re-engineer movements, to break watchmaker rules, to even get more performance out of a movement. That is, I think, where the manufacture became major, I would say. Yeah.
And it's where you really, how can I say, recap all the essential elements of the mission that you have taken over of developing Armin Strom, in terms of how it's made. So the level of quality that you put in the decorative side of all the parts, in the engineering as well. But like you just mentioned about Armin Strom's obsession with quality, also the chronometry and the accuracy elements that in which you want to bring your contribution.
Mm-hmm. I think science of movement is something which is extremely important for us, because if we go back in history, the biggest watchmakers which we had in history, if it's Harrison, if it's Abraham Louis Breguet, George Daniels, of course they finished their pieces in a very high-end way. You know, they were able, because they mastered what they do. But at the end, it was always to get a better performance out of the watch. There was this problem of chronometry. The better your watch was, better navigation got. So I think those watchmakers, they had this approach of science in movement. And this is something which I think got a little bit lost in the past, because doing a tourbillon and rebuilding a tourbillon and doing another tourbillon is nice. I mean, it's a nice complication. It's one of the nicest animation. I'm still a fan of tourbillon, but the re-engineering side, or this motivation of doing things better, got maybe a little bit lost. And what we try in Armin Strom, we try to combine the innovation side, being innovative and creative if it comes to movement, and being traditional if it comes to decoration. So every part is 100% hand decorated. Today we have 14 people just working on movement decoration. If it comes to hand beveling, if it comes to mirror polishing. So a very good team which does apply traditional finishings, but it's in a more contemporary design and in a re-engineered movement. And that's a bit the mix of Armin Strom today.
And this is from the more attainable collections, like the System 78 Gravity Equal Force that we're seeing here in the Ultimate Sapphire version, all the way to the most complex pieces. Because the resonance, what you've done, you've launched the pure resonance at the beginning, and then the mirror forced, and then you kept improving and you kept kind of working on your innovation, and to the point that now you've come out with a new version of the resonance, which is in a thinner case and a thinner movement in general, and also you have even tested resonance with the minute repeater as well, just to take it to the extreme. So you were not just content with introducing resonance, you are actively working to keep improving it, and taking it to the chronometrical levels that you are you intend to.
Exactly. You mentioned the minute repeat, the resonance is our masterpiece number 2. It's a piece which we launched for our 10th anniversary, limited to 10 pieces. We have an annual capacity of about 2 to 3 movements max, which we do. It is resonance in physics has 2 meanings. One, resonance is transmitting sound, or resonance is known as transmitting sound, vibrations, and to synchronize frequencies. And first of all, it was the first goal was just to have the minute repeater resonance combined with the synchronization of 2 balance wheel resonance. But then we were so accurate with our resonance clutch spring that we were even able to build the 2 gongs above the resonance clutch spring to show how accurate and how stable the resonance clutch spring is, because the minute repeater does not affect the phenomenon of resonance, because thanks to our clutch spring, which connects the 2 balance wheels, we achieve such a stable resonance that we can even build a minute repeater on top.
Can we discuss on one of the big misconceptions about resonance and the fact that the clutch that you have patented and created and installed in this movement actually is perfectly fine to classify it as one of the elements that enhance resonance rather than taking away the resonance effect in this instance?
If we go back in history of resonance, the Dutch physician Christian Huygens discovered the phenomenon of resonance because he had 2 clocks beating next to each other, and they were connected through a wooden board, and they synchronized. And he saw that there's a benefit of if 2 watches beat in resonance. He was thinking about the ships, so on, so long story. On the other hand, we had the very first person who achieved a resonance pendulum clock was Anton. And Anton said, by sharing the suspension of the 2 pendulums, I achieved resonance. So that means that where the 2 pendulums are fixed, as soon as he put them under the same suspension, they were fixed on the same element, he achieved resonance. And Abraham Louis Breguet built a pocket watch, a resonance pocket watch, saw that the 2 balance wheels do synchronize each other, and he was thinking about the phenomenon of air, and to prove that it's not air, because already Breguet was sure that it must be the transmission of micro vibrations through the main plate, which brings the 2 balance wheels into resonance. And what I did, and I think this is where I'm a bit, where my understanding of watchmaking ends, because what we did, of course, in Armin Strom, we had to break a few rules to be able to synchronize 2 balance wheels thanks to a flexible suspension, but it is nothing else than if you go back in history, what all the big watchmakers explained, what is key element in resonance is a transmission of micro vibration. What we did, we just did the best performance resonance, the clutch mechanism, which is actually, it's a transmission of micro vibrations. It's just a high-end piece, which many watchmakers were never able to think about. And for Armin Strom, it was a breakthrough to a problem which was there. Nobody was thinking about a resonance clutch spring, a flexible suspension in between 2 hairsprings, the easiest and more accurate way to transmit vibrations. The clutch spring doesn't take any energy or adds any energy. So it's a connection, but as I learned, I mean, my background is watch restoration. And since I graduated in the Museum of La Chaux-de-Fonds, I was fascinated by the phenomenon of resonance. I think this is why it was a goal for myself to to improve resonance in wristwatches. And we did nothing else than we listened to what the biggest watchmaker in the world learned about resonance, and we applied it in the more in the most contemporary or the most high-end way.
I think it is an absolutely beautiful piece of engineering. I think I absolutely relate to it, and I think what the clutch spring does is introduces stability to the solution, if you like.
It's more accurate. It synchronizes faster, and there's another big benefit is that we control anti-phase resonance. That means one of the two balance wheels is always turning clockwise, the other one is turning counterclockwise. So if you have an impact is very important on wristwatches. If you have an impact, one of the balance wheels will slow down, the other one will speed up, and the fact that they are connected to each other actually guarantees the frequency thanks to the phenomenon of resonance. And I know what Pietro mentioned a bit, because there's a huge discussions going on, but about natural resonance or physical resonance. First of all, what is natural? In a watch movement is science. Everything has to be calculated. This is physics involved. Nothing is natural in the watch movement. Not even air. Even air is physics, because air is something you can take out of a room. It's a room under vacuum, and if you take the air out, so you take a physical element out of a room. So this is more for all the watchmakers which did not understand what they did, and they try to attack young watchmakers, which gonna open. And I personally believe there's way more coming. There's a young generation of watchmakers pushing inventions, and I think it's cool. We should be open. We should be because there is a lot of exciting projects coming in the next years.
I was going to ask exactly that, Claude, because thank you for answering the question. And it's when we can give clarity to our collectors that obviously hear different different viewpoints. It's always great to give all the informative elements that we can. It's fascinating, but in terms of, to go back to the development where you are going with Armin Strom, I mean, you have. As I said before, Johnny was showing also the gravity equal force, which is also a revolutionary system that increases the accuracy because of a movement, because obviously it helps the movement to be able to generate the same amount of energy, which is one of the other holy grail in watchmaking from the technical perspective. So you have that at the entry level of your collection. You have already tested with the tourbillons, with the dual time, which was your masterpiece number 1, dual time resonance. Then with the minute repeater mixed with the resonance. What's happening next, Claude? I'm really curious, and I'm sure many of our collectors will be. Is there a masterpiece number 3 in the pipeline, or are you working on some big microengineering projects that you can unveil or you can make reference to?
We do work on a masterpiece number 3. It's in a very early stage. Masterpieces in general takes us in between 2 and 3 years. It's in an early stage. There is a very cool animation coming. It will be resonance based, but it will be something which was never seen in resonance. That's something which I strongly believe. That's a very cool animation of having 2 movements synchronizing each other in a wristwatch. That's if it comes to masterpiece. We have in the resonance collection, there will be a little bit smaller sizes being available in the next year, maybe. And in System 78, we also have a few new movements which will be launched. There's one movement which will be launched this year during Geneva Watches Days. in end of August, beginning of September. A new watch, a very cool watch in System 78. It is a sports dedicated watch, open worked, very nice. Very also. I just saw the prototype 2 days ago, and it looks fantastic. It's really.
You also did
really looking forward.
Yeah. You also did another watch that was had a very sporty personality, and again, you redesigned or reimagined the complication of the pointer date.
Exactly.
Amazing.
The orbit is, I would say it's a date on demand. That means for me it was the way how we have our watches. We work with sub-dials most of the time.
Yes.
So if it comes to a date function, it was easy for us to integrate a date function on a sub-dial, because then the date would be very, very invisible, because it's a very small window and people would struggle to read the date. So what kind of other options do you have? Big date, yes, but we have seen many big dates in the past. There are also some brands that have very cool mechanisms. So big date, okay, maybe an option, maybe not. Pointer date, cool. But the problem of a pointer date was that if you work with a sub-dial, your pointer date is always going to cover the sub-dial for a few days, because the date hand would go above hour and minute indication. So what my idea was to use, first of all, use the bezel, the ceramic bezel, to indicate the date, and then combine the date mechanism with somehow a chronograph, so that we say we have a mono-pusher chronograph, which we use to, if you activate the pusher, which is at around about 10 o'clock, the hand will jump on its date. So that means the date is on. Now, once the date is on, the hand will stay on the date, and during midnight would move to the next date. But for an aesthetic reason, there is a centered off position, which is exactly at 12 o'clock. So if you push one more time, you bring your hand back to its neutral position, which is at 12 o'clock. So it's a date on demand. So you press once, the hand jumps on its date. You press one more time, the hand jumps back to its natural position.
Again, it's a wonderful piece of engineering, a lovely solution to it, because I actually can't see how you could integrate the big date or even any of a date disc into that mechanism without really just taking away from the aesthetic, which is kind of an Armin Strom signature with the stop clutch and the stop work mechanism, and so it was the only way really, a large pointer, but how you use the column wheel chronograph idea to actually execute that is I love it. Again, it's fantastic to see these innovations.
Thank you.
It's amazing, and we could talk for ages. And I just checked now my watch. 40 minutes have gone, and it was really, really interesting. And I hope that you guys that are watching this will find a lot of inspiration and information that we try to convey all the way to you. The last topic I wanted to touch upon, Johnny, was the fact that after what we have explained, after what we've shown, after the dissecting the ability that Armin Strom has as an in-house manufacturer to actually master all the processes of designing, engineering, and the making, including the mechanical parts and all what is decoration. Obviously, and the masterpieces that we've shown, you may have a perception of a brand that is crazily, obviously, priced, in terms of positioning. But actually, one of the really, really great things that Armin Strom is able to do is also to offer to collectors that are keen on independent watchmaking, in-house watchmaking, to have a couple of collections that are really cleverly priced, such as the Gravity Equal Force that we have already mentioned, but also the Tribute one, Claude, that it was a later introduction to your collection. How strategic it is for you to keep those very keen collectors that eventually, could not push it to the very higher end of the scale, to have something of like we can define real in-house manufacturing that is actually attainable?
That was it's first of all the reason why we have is the way how we do our price level is we have nobody in between. The supply chain is we buy brass and steel and we produce all our components in-house, so there's nobody taking any money in between. In between. So that means if you are other niche brands, they maybe have to order the movements from a supplier or hands from a supplier, and this everything is done in-house. So there is no in between money. So this is one reason why I think the price is very fair. And on the other hand, for us, it's important.
So sorry to cut you there, Claude. There's a little disturbance on the audio, but I also take the opportunity then to make this observation. So the inner value, as we say very often in independent watchmaking, the inner value is actually very close to the retail value of a timepiece, given the dynamics you just explained.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably selecting to choose a Tribute 1 rose gold isn't probably the best example of your accessibility being in the precious metal. Obviously, available in stainless steel.
And I can say that if you go on the limited edition, because we are of course official retailers for Armin Strom, you can find all the different versions, including the steel version, which is priced today in the UK at 11,750 excluding tax. So at around a bit more than 10,000, you have a piece of real artisan in-house manufacturing, which to any possible extent is a great achievement, John.
Without a doubt, it's honest Pietro is what it is, and it's I think it's a good way of developing a brand and nurturing a following, getting that people on board. Yes, as with most watch brands, you can go from entry level to the top of the tree very quickly, but it's nice that there is that Armin Strom allow that accessibility, and how important it is too. For there's also, I don't have an image of it uploaded, but it's the lady beat, which is another very important sector of independent watchmaking that is not very often catered for. That again is so creating a piece that is technically sophisticated and recognizing the market that is the ladies' market, and so
we can see the different models, and as we mentioned, the Tribute 1, black in blue, which was the first edition, and the Lady Beat, of course, that Johnny is talking about, which was again, Claude, a way to operate outside of your comfort zone and really keep innovating and experimenting. In this case, from the design perception.
Exactly. This was a watch which was done. I was struggling a bit when they approached me to research, when we had our first idea of, okay, let's create, because we had many women which were fascinated by open worked watches, and they'd say that's something which is missing in the world of women's watches. But I was a bit struggling of, okay, first of all, I think we have to understand what a woman really wants. And so we said, okay, why should we not open our design team? And so we collaborated with two ladies. One is, she's a designer in watchmaking, and the other lady, she worked several years, almost 25 years for Chanel. And so we briefed them on a ladies' watch, and then it was what was very important for them is like, okay, we don't need a second hand because a second hand is just not nice to see. Then I, as a watchmaker, said, okay, a second hand is important because if you don't see a hand moving, you never know if your watch is working or is not working. So we came with the idea of having the balance wheel which for them was like the heart, and the heart is very important for women's. So the heartbeat on the dial side, which was allowing us to skip the second hand and just focusing on hour and minute hands. And then also I think that the whole shape, you see the locks are very reduced. If you have a chance to wear one or to see one, I think it's very soft. It's very, the touch and feel of the watch is very smooth. So it was maybe not on the engineering side. It is an invention by having the balance wheel on the dial side, the rotor on the back side. So it's a very cool movement. But I think there the innovative part was on the collaboration of not that we do a women's watch the way how we think a women's watch should be. So because that was a watch which was made from woman for woman.
So interesting. I'm so glad. Johnny, I think you are muted at the moment for some reasons. I was going, so glad that we managed to go through so much detail, really, in terms of both the history, the development that you and Serge have managed to bring, and now 14 years already, and a little bit of excursus across all the different collections. So I'm glad you enjoyed it if you were watching this live, and I hope people that will watch this recorded episode will enjoy as well. This is The Independence, where Johnny, the limited edition editor and also the editor of the Watch Press and the organizer of the Festival of Time, and myself interview the protagonists of the world of independent watchmaking, which is for us a passion. We are also incidentally official retailers for some of the most intriguing and inspiring names of independent watchmaking. And I can only thank Claude for your time. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to welcoming you to Ireland, hopefully, and Emmanuel will get back and confirm that, and it'll be very exciting to
looking forward,
Armin Strom and your incredible creations, which I'm a big fan, and so it's an honor to think that later this year we will be welcoming you to Ireland. Can't wait for that. Have a pint of Guinness maybe in the evening or something like that.
That sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, and I'll see you very soon. All the best.
Thank you, Beto. Thank you, Johnny.
Bye.